watching what everybody's working on, I got to say I'm a bit jealous. I wish I had this kind of curriculum in school myself. Unfortunately, I didn't. So, but I'm going to talk about three important aspects to be successful in information security tonight. I'm going to talk about my experience mainly. And so it's important to know that everybody has a different experience. However, this is my story, and how I got into cybersecurity is just a big part of my life and my story. So I'm going to start off with a little quote here. Find a job you enjoy doing and you will never have to work a day in your life. I'm not really sure if Mark Twain actually said this. I tried Googling it the other day, and I think I got 9 different people as the quote, as the author of that quote. However, I'll just put it up there as Mark Twain. I love this quote. I was always told this as a kid: if you find a job you enjoy doing, you're never going to work. And while some people fight against that, I found this to become true. And this kind of has helped me guide my career to where it is today. And so I wanted to start with just the introduction on myself and my background. So we're going to run through my life from when I was a child all the way till today. So this may take a little bit, but bear with me here. We'll get to the meat in a little bit. When I was a kid, I loved taking things apart. I took apart toys of mine. I took apart my bike. I took apart the computer. Sometimes I'd get in trouble for it. But I really was fascinated with how things worked. I clearly remember taking apart a radio that I had. And I was just so fascinated that this device that you can plug into power in the wall, and then suddenly turn a knob and you can hear voices and music and everything from miles away. And I just thought it was the craziest thing. And I wanted to know how that worked. So I would take it apart. I'm happy to say most of the time I wouldn't have extra parts. Sometimes I did. And most of the time things worked after I put them together, but I just really enjoyed doing that. That's just a big part of how my brain works. We grew up with an old IBM computer with running DOS. My favorite thing to do with that computer really was play Nibbler, and it's a snake game where you get the dots and your snake grows, and but playing games on it and word processing were really all it was good for. But that's where I got started with computers. Shortly after, we were able to upgrade our systems, and internet started coming to the homes. And I remember getting Prodigy and AOL and being able to go online to chat rooms and talk with other people. For some reason, I knew my friends' usernames, but they didn't know mine. And so I would jump into a chat room with them. And as everybody would at the time, you'd throw in ASL, for age, sex, location, trying to find out who was joining in the room. And I would troll my friends. I would tell them I was a female around their age in the location they were in. And through time, I was able to get them to tell me personal information that we would look back at now and say, that's bad. We should not be sharing that kind of information. Of course, my father found out and printed out the chat and handed it to friends of mine, parents, and they got in trouble. But, that was kind of my first delving into information security realistically, and just computers and the internet. When I got to high school, I got into a program our high school had, which was for communications technology. And I first joined it because I was interested in technology. I wanted to know more. And communications seemed like a fun thing to do because our normal computer class was just simply typing, and I wasn't having fun in that. The communications technology course involved video production. So we got to create short films. We got to record news stories. We got to record different events, sporting events and such. And we even ran our own TV station. And it was so much fun because it was so hands-on. We got to learn so much. And I really felt like this was that career, that job that I could see myself doing and not working a day in my life because I was having so much fun with it. So I decided to go ahead and apply to schools to go for communications technology. So I graduated and I got the packets for college. And what ended up happening was I found that communications technologies did not mean the same thing to schools that I thought it meant. Most of the schools that I had talked to, even afterwards, I found out it was all regarding communications in the aspect of radio, being that person behind the mic and talking on the radio, or being in front of a camera and giving the news or presenting the news feeds. And I did not want to do that. I did not want to be in front of people. I was a very behind the scenes kind of person. I enjoyed the technology. I enjoyed doing the work, but I didn't want to be in front of people. So I decided not to go to college. I actually decided to skip out. And 3 days after I graduated, we moved to Florida. I grew up in Connecticut, so then we moved to Florida 3 days after I graduated high school. My parents didn't have money to give me for college, and so I did what most other people would do in that kind of situation. If you're not going to college, I found a job. And so I started working at BJ's Wholesale Club and as a cashier, just to gain some money to save for college. I figured if I just moved to Florida, let me wait a year, get in-state tuition, and then maybe I can afford to get through. Within about a year, after about a year, I had enrolled at Indian River Community College, it's now Indian River State College. Started taking classes, and I really was trying to figure out what do I want to do. I took the basic classes, I took a few computer classes here and there, but I really started to get into criminal justice. I thought that was a great field, and I thought maybe I could become a police officer because I knew a few and I respected them and all that they do, and I thought that might be what it is for me. So I ended up enrolling in the police academy. I didn't end up going to the police academy because shortly before I would have started, I went on a ride along with a friend of mine who was a policeman in the town that I lived. During that ride along, I was terrified. Most of the night was fine until we got into a domestic dispute, domestic violence call. And it terrified me to the core. And I realized this is not for me. I can't deal with that myself. So I decided to keep working at BJ's. I was there as a man. I started rising through the ranks. I was a manager, but I was working crazy hours and it was just not enjoyable for me. So I decided to transfer from the store I was in Florida up to Pennsylvania, where my wife, well, she's now my wife, but my fiance at the time was going to college. And so I started enjoying it a little more, but it still just didn't feel like it was what my career should be. So we discussed it, my wife and I, and found out she's very supportive and said, "What do you want to do? Let's find it." And so I heard an ad on the radio for a school called Computer Learning Network. Now this school doesn't exist anymore. It was actually pulled into York Technical Institute a few years after I had graduated, but it was a 1-year accelerated program. I was in class for 6 hours a day, just going from this is how you turn on a computer to managing complex enterprise networks and securing them. By the end of class, throughout the class, I was hacking all my fellow classmates, the computers, and we had a castle versus castle at the end. I was able to, through that time, find out how they work, how they set passwords, how they set up systems. And so when we had that castle versus castle, I was able to use that information to get in and plant my flag pretty quickly, to which they weren't very happy with. But I was just able to do that through that time. And I learned so much, and I was so excited to get into a career that I was actually enjoying and I was loving. So I looked for a job and I didn't realize there was any kind of cybersecurity at the time. I just thought it was IT. And so I found a job, and I was in IT support um, for various companies, and ended up getting into consulting. And I really loved consulting for small to medium sized businesses, would help them with their systems. I eventually got into defense contracting, and was able to work for a defense contractor, thinking, oh, this is great. Now I'm moving more into security. So this is where I want to be. But it never really panned out how I imagined, from the schooling that I had done, and where I saw myself. So years went by, and I was sitting at a job one day, and I was frustrated. I didn't know what to do. I'd gone to school. I had done all the things that I thought I was supposed to. I found this career path that I thought was for me, but it just didn't seem to be exactly what I wanted. So I started looking online just for resources to learn how to get better at hacking into companies, or doing security. And I found this program, and this program called Cyberaces. Now, Cyberaces was funded through by the NSF, hosted and supported by Brookdale Community College, and Mike Cassani was a huge part of that. And I didn't even know it was a competition at the time, but I went through some training through Cyberaces, and then was invited to a competition, did well, and was invited to this program where me and 12 others, or me and 11 others, a cohort of 12, got to spend an entire year taking SANS courses in cybersecurity. And after going through the program, my mind was just blown. This was a whole world that I didn't even know existed for years. And I realized then, this is that job that I'm going to enjoy doing. I'm never going to have to work again in my life. And this became real to me when my wife said something to me. And I actually like her quote a little bit better, when she told me, you don't work, you just play all day. And she's 100% right. I think it happened when I was sitting on the couch working, and I was laughing and having a fun time. And I stood up, and I threw my fist up in the air, and I was excited. And she was like, what's going on? And I told her I'd gotten in to this customer that I was trying to get into. And she was just like, you don't work, you just play. And that's how it is. And so now I fast forward to today, and now I'm a senior security consultant. I work for a company called Netitude, who's a cybersecurity services provider, and a very well-respected one in the world, where we have offices throughout the world. We do all of the different types of services. We do penetration testing and red teaming, which is what I do. But we also do SOC services. We do incident response. We do just general consulting with companies. And I get to do that every day, this thing that I love. I get to write tools. I get to share my knowledge with others. I even had an opportunity a few years back to be an instructor for middle school and high school in the area, to share my knowledge on cybersecurity and teach them, the next generation, on what's going on. I'm also in the process now of finishing a book, and things that I've never thought would happen to me, all because I found that I was able to finally find that job that lets me not work. And so when I tell people about this, I always am asked this question: how do I get into cybersecurity or information security? This may come in different forms, right? So it may be, what school do I have to go to, or what classes do I need to take, or what kind of major should I be, or it could be any number of questions, but this question constantly comes up. And so I usually give 3 pieces of advice. And so I wanted to share that with you so you can pass this on to your students and make sure that these things are covered. And these are directly because when I'm hiring somebody, when I'm going through the process of interviewing, these are things that I'm looking for. And quite frankly, I don't see it often, people that have these skills. So the first one is communication skills. It's key. When I do a penetration test, I break into a company, I have to do two things at the end of that that the customer gets. And the first thing is a report, and that could be a 50 to 150 page report, explaining what the vulnerabilities are, what the issues were, how to fix it, what systems are affected, and why it's an issue. But it's also a debrief with the customer. So I need to be able to explain the findings in a way that they understand. Often when I try to explain things to non-technical folk, such as my wife or my mom or any others in my family, I remember clearly my uncles and I were sitting down and I was trying to explain things, and I think this is the exact look I got from them too. When you're trying to explain something and people just aren't getting it, you're obviously not communicating that properly. And that's what I've learned. And so I've learned to be able to communicate complex technical things, concepts to people that are not technical, to where they understand, they get it. And that's a key thing to do. And so I always suggest explain to your family, explain to others in your classroom or co-students or whoever you can, about what you're learning, because as you communicate that helps you show that you are learning and you know what you're doing. And as I said, the other part is writing. Writing is so important. I get a lot of reports. I'm on a quality assurance team where I look at reports of all of our testers, and I have for years. And some of them are pretty awful. And so learning how to write properly and how to explain things in a technical format is extremely important, but also in a non-technical format, because a lot of the reporting goes to executive leadership and they don't understand the technical and they don't care. So how can we make sure we properly send that out, that message? The second thing I always tell people is know the fundamentals. It's really good to learn some cool things and how to do some complex tasks. But if you don't know the fundamentals, you're going to have a hard time and you're going to be limited in what you can do. Advanced skills are really just the basics mastered. It's not anything extra special. It's just knowing those basics. I can't tell you how many times I'll get into a network and I'll find these loopholes that the admins have put in because I was a systems admin. I know what they do for shortcuts. Because I know those basics and I know how networking works and I know how computers work, I can then use that to further my career. But it goes for all aspects of cybersecurity. And then the last thing really is just practice. Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes better. And so if you are able to practice and you're able to keep getting better, I as a hiring manager can know that and I can figure that out. But it's always going to make you better. It's that passion. Anyone can look cool, but awesome does take some practice. So how do we do that? Well, I always encourage people set up a lab, a home lab. I have probably 8 or 10 computers in my house, which my wife hates, but I have them and I set up labs and I set up networks, and it helps me remember how to set up networks and how that setup works. It also helps me have an area that I can practice all my skills at to get in. And so really the 3 takeaways are those. Communication skills are key. I never liked getting up in front of people. I never wanted to be in front of that microphone or on camera. My career has allowed me to do that. But if I'm not able to communicate, even not on camera, through writing or through just a phone call debrief with executive leadership, I'm going to have a hard time with my career. And so learning how to communicate is essential no matter what career you choose. The fundamentals, you have to know those basics before digging deep. If you start digging deep too quickly, you're going to stumble, you're going to fall, you're not going to know how to progress. And it happens all the time. Practice, practice, practice. The better you'll get better as the more you practice. So keep doing that if you're able to. And that also helps fight against the whole, you can't get a job without experience, but how do you get experience without getting a job? Well, if you practice in your home lab, now you have a tangible area that you've actually been working in, and you can use that in your resumes and in your interviews. So like I said, find a job you enjoy doing. You'll never have to work a day in your life. I've been lucky enough to achieve that. And it's come through hard work. It's come through a lot of different things in my path. Everybody's is going to be different. But I truly believe that you can. And when I talk to students of mine in the past, this is what I tried to instill in them and let them know that there is a career in this and they can do it. And it's a great career and they can have a lot of fun with it. I appreciate everybody letting me talk tonight and listening. I know we're a little bit over time, but some of my contact information is there. So if you have any questions, you want to reach out to me, definitely you can email me, you can hit me up on my Twitter, and I'm happy to discuss. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Kirk.
Yeah, thanks, Kirk.
That's really fantastic.